Hello, everybody. Welcome to It Was Tuesday with your host, James Chen, A.K.I. J. Chenzor. If you guys are enjoying the content, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment below letting me know what more kinds of content you'd like to see from me. But you know what? Everybody wants to hear about this, I'm sure, and that is, how would I fix Street Fighter 6? And you know what? I'm allergic to balance patches, I think. Actually, I'm allergic to cats. And that's why that happened. Oh boy. Okay. Oof. So everybody wants to know. I mean, look, a few weeks ago, I talked about, are people being too salty about Street Fighter 6? Are people complaining too much? And I said, no, I don't think people are complaining too much. And I still stick by that. Obviously, people are very vocal about what they would like to change. And, but it's the internet. Everyone's going to be super loud about it, and they're going to be super angry about it. And so, clearly, it seems like people are complaining more. But again, if you've ever seen how it was back in, for every fighting game, it's like this. And people are like, oh my God, Street Fighter 6, everyone's complaining. Dude, have you seen Ed Boon's mentions? Ultra David has told the story that one time Ed Boon tagged him in a tweet, and then he basically had to mute that tweet because basically everybody was yelling at Ed Boon about everything. So no, look, it's the internet, and it's just the more people you get onto it, the louder everybody seems when it comes to people being upset about things. And I largely think that a lot of the problems are that people just feel like the game is so close to being balanced that they're wanting more, that they want it to be perfect. Like, they feel like it has that ability to get closer. I mean, I feel like people have more to say about the Street Fighter's system mechanics than every other system mechanics for any other game ever, because I think a lot of the other games, they just don't feel as balanced. So, I think the question that I have here is, does it need fixing? And again, look, I think the game is balanced. If you guys just watch this video over here on the YouTube channel here, the CPT France Premier Stacks, I was saying that this game is extremely balanced. And a lot of people are saying that, my complaint isn't about the balance, right? My complaint is about, I just want the game to be more fun, or I just want the game to be more interesting. It's growing stale, etc., etc. And, stale after 4 months is like, okay. Well, 5 months now is like, okay, sure, okay. But here, one thing I want to get out of the way first. There are clearly valid complaints and concerns that everybody is absolutely justified for, and that everybody should absolutely be complaining about. Drive rush is eating inputs, 100%. Needs to be fixed. Like, there's not even a question about that. Like, there's just nothing to say about that. That should not happen. That should not happen. Why hasn't that been fixed yet? People are complaining about the matchmaking. So a lot of people can get great matches, but if you're in a lesser populated area, there's a weird, wall that they don't let you go challenge people in other regions or so. And so some people can't get matches on ranked, ever. Some people say that they actually just sit there for 20 minutes and there's just literally nothing. They just get no matches. It takes 20 minutes for a match. Some people say they never get matches. So we definitely need to fix that. I know a lot of people are complaining, where's our costumes? I feel like Capcom's trying to be fair and having costumes for every oh yeah, see, Latam says he's region locked, so he has to use a VPN. But a lot of people are complaining, where's the costumes? I want to buy costumes. And sure enough, showing Capcom that people are wanting to buy costumes. And I feel like Capcom is working hard. My suspicion is that they're trying to get costumes out for every character all at once, so it doesn't feel like they're favoring some characters. So maybe they don't end up in that situation with 90 Chun-Li costumes and all the Fong players are like, where's my costumes? Maybe they're trying to be fair to everyone, but it's kind of backfiring on them. Like they probably thought that was a good idea, but it seems to be backfiring because it seems like everyone wants costumes now. And so they've teased like a bunch of costumes and everyone's like, where's the costumes? And whatever they did in Street Fighter V worked because people want costumes and modding is getting pretty rampant at this point in time. So a lot of, I mean, honestly, costumes would be cool. I don't know if people would be mad if they released costumes in small little bundles or released costumes one at a time. You know, I think people would be okay with that. And I mean, if we end up with 19 Chun-Li costumes, I mean, you guys did it in 5 because it worked. It people bought them. So, you know, it's like, oh, man. So, yeah, those things outside of the game, absolutely valid complaints. And you know what? Capcom definitely needs to look, because a lot of people are saying that outside of the DLC coming out, it feels like Capcom is just completely gone radio silence, right? They said they're going to do patches once a year. I said in the last video, I think that's too little. I really do think that's too little. I still think we don't need a patch right now because we're only in month 5, but 6 months is usually a pretty valid place to put patches, especially if you just do really small things. People get excited about really, really small things. They do, honestly. I just think Avatar stuff is more lucrative and can't be modded. Mod community makes costumes that are kind of competing with that, perhaps, maybe. But a lot of people don't want to go out and try to find the costumes. They'd rather just use the in-game ones, and I think that works, really. But yeah, like Keijukaze actually says content for the game is stale. You know, I think it's really impressive because they've actually added all the, you know, World Tour stuff for Aki and Rashid when they come out. And I think that has actually kind of made it harder for them to like, that's what they're working on. Because I don't think it's that easy to record and create all the content for those DLC with all of the quests and do all these things and test all that stuff. And so the World Tour stuff might be getting in their way, but I don't want them not to make the World Tour stuff. Their staff might not be that large for Street Fighter DLC content. You never know, right? And people are like, well, it takes modders only 1 day to make costumes. Yeah, there's no approval process. And there's no tweaking and testing and all these things like that, right? It's a completely different story. Like, if you're modding your own costume, no one is telling you what you should do or what you shouldn't do, right? I mean, I'm sure it's like, for actually Capcom, they're like, how about this costume? And they draw it out and they're like, change this. Oh, how about this? Change this. How about this? Change this. And then once they start making it, tweak this, do this. No, I don't like this. Actually, upper brass says delete this. And, oh, God, it's so crazy. So, yeah, we do, you know, and I feel like out of everything, patches might be the easiest thing to do. So maybe patches are a good way to placate people. Like, hey, look, we're updating the game. So might be actually a good way to go. Just make some patches like, hey, Kim has an ODDP now. Kim has an ODDP now. Please, Kim has an ODDP now. Please. So yeah, I think it's a little bit harder than people think for them, but at the same time, we do probably need some more coming out of them. We probably do need some more communication and more awareness and, you know, more like, hey, we hear you guys about patches. Here's our logic why we still don't want to patch just yet, or something like that. You know, like at least talk to us a little bit. And I think that would be really, really cool. But let's talk about the balance of the game and what a lot of people are complaining about. How do we fix Street Fighter 6? So, first of all, let's just talk about the character balance, right? So if we don't change anything else and we want to talk about the character balance, clearly there's some characters that need more love than others. Like, regardless of how balanced the game actually is, which it is, and the fact that any character can win because they can, obviously, some characters take a lot more work. And if you are a player, especially if you are an intermediate player using Jamie, or if you're an intermediate player using Manon, it's that much more frustrating because the character's weaknesses are that much more apparent because, you know, you're not at that level where you can make up for the weaknesses as badly, right? So you're fighting these Kens that just Jinrai kick you to death, and Camis that dive kick you to death, and Kims that just mix you in the corner to death. And you're just like, this is so dumb. My character is so bad, because you don't know how to win with the character. So you're absolutely correct. And Zangief, yeah, exactly. And Zangief and Lily. So you're absolutely correct. You know, like you know, I've often said at the lowest level, tiers don't matter. It's true. But as you get stronger and stronger into the game, the tiers start to matter more. And I would probably say once you get past intermediate, the tiers really start to really rear their ugly head until you become, you know, good enough to overcome that. And by that point, you're usually in like master and a little beyond master at that point. You're probably around like at the 1500s of master rank, where you can actually make up for your character's weaknesses because you understand them. But when you're learning the game, you don't know what the weaknesses are because you don't have as much knowledge of the game. And, you know, it's a tough situation. It is a tough situation for a lot of these players. So, you know, Jamie users, Zangief users, Manon, they definitely need buffs. But again, the scariest thing is, and I'll use the Tetris Puyo Puyo example for this, is that when you're trying to balance Tetris and Puyo Puyo in Tetris Puyo Puyo Tetris, because you can play either game against each other, if you balance for the mid tier, at the top tier, Tetris is too strong, I think. And if you balance for the top tier, at mid tier, Puyo Puyo is too strong. And so how are you supposed to do this, right? Where do you balance it out at? So you have to be very careful with balancing. Fortunately, with fighting games, there's a lot more leeway for balancing than there is for something like Puyo Puyo Tetris. So a lot of these characters who are low tier, they don't need a lot. And I said it in this previous video over here. Honestly, if you just gave every character an ODDP, like that's it. Like you would almost balance the game out completely. Like, that's the biggest weakness for a lot of these characters. A lot of these characters have trouble. Like, it sucks that Zangief is the weakest defensively that Zangief has ever been in his entire life. In his entire life. This is the weakest he's ever been. And it's like, it's sad. It's very sad, right? And so, you know, I think every character should get an ODDP wake up, right? And let's be creative here. We don't have to give everybody a straight up ODDP. I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, but like, we can be creative here. We can find ways to make it so it's fair, because if you gave Marisa a wake up DP, if you gave Dhalsim a wake up DP, clearly those two characters will be broken. Like, they're good enough and they're close enough to being right there, right under the top tier. But I think if you actually gave them OD wake-ups, they might become a little too strong. Again, yes, you can bait out ODDPs and kill people for doing them. So obviously it's like, well, you know what? Maybe it doesn't balance them, whatever. But the truth is that the threat of having that kind of an option changes a lot. And we have to acknowledge that. The fact that somebody has to walk up and then maybe consider blocking is a big deal. If you, even, you know, especially if you don't have a super on your wake up, it is a big deal to have that kind of a threat. And it evens out the playing field a little bit, because even if you go for a true throw loop and then some guy wake up EXs you, you're just like, ah, dang it. And so I really feel like we need to do stuff like that. But what do I mean by be creative, right? Well, for Lily and Kimberly, I think both, they should just have their ODDPs work. Like Kimberly's spin kick, Lily's uppercut, they should just work exactly as ODDPs. And I think they'll be fine. A lot of people are mad, you know, like, oh my God, Kimberly is so annoying. You can't give that to her. But honestly, like I said, at the highest levels, that won't even make Kimberly remotely top 5. Like, she might still not even be top 10 potentially. She'll be really strong, but she won't just get blown up in a lot of situations. In a lot of these tournaments, the reason why we see a lot of these characters have less success is because they are more susceptible to all the corner pressure that a lot of other characters don't have to deal with. So for Kimberly and Lily, if you just gave them their ODDPs back, I don't think that actually breaks them, right? But what am I talking about? Be creative. Marisa, for example. Right now, she has OD Scutum that can actually stop. It's an armor on first frame, so and high and low as well. So basically, she can use it to defeat attacks, but she doesn't have anything that defeats throws. Her level 1 doesn't even defeat throws. The only thing that she has is a true wake up that'll beat attacks and throws is her level 2. Now, I have said that I do think if you give her a valid OD wake up, she would probably be too strong because she's already right there, clearly as a player like Big Bird has shown. So I think that what we can, and level 3. Okay, Marisa, the lowest resource thing that she has to escape throw and attack is level 2. Obviously, level 3 works as well, but in terms of lowest resource usage is her level 2. And for all the characters that need it, like Lily and Kimberly and Manon, their level 1s have a startup. So Manon, Kimberly, and Lily have their startups at level 1 startups at 11, 12, and 13, if I'm not mistaken. It's like 10, 12, and 13, or 11, 12, and 13. Whereas Luke is a 6-frame startup, Ken is a 7-frame start, like Jury's 7-frame start. Like all the characters that have OD DPs also have the fastest level 1s. The characters that don't have OD DPs have the slowest level 1s that you could throw a jab in and block in time and kill them. So they're nerfed in that way too. So, I mean, there is one idea, just speed up all their level 1s, but that changes some of the combo routes and stuff that I think that they're worried about that they don't want to do. I think the level 1s are largely balanced on some combo routes and stuff they don't want it to work and such. But I just think giving them an ODDP is the better answer for that. But for Marisa, I don't think giving her an ODDP is the right answer. Like I said, I don't think that these are the right answers, but I'm just trying to give examples of how to think about it differently so that we can create a situation where they have the ability to escape both options, attack and throw, without being overpowered. I think OD Scutum should basically automatically tech throws. So it doesn't beat throws, but she just returns her into a 0 situation. And if she's in the corner and you're going for a throw loop, she's still in the corner. But at least it gives her a way to counter throws and attacks if she doesn't want to have to try to make that guess on which one it is. Having the ability to throw that out to beat attacks or throws is a very powerful weapon to have. Having the, having a good, is there a good enough punish for that? See, that's the problem, is that OD Scutum, you obviously can follow up with something right away. And that's what would make it really, really scary. So I have thought about, having it so that it, like the way that I forgot, I came up with a way to make it work and I can't remember what it was because I sat there. I was doing this while I was trying to fall asleep one day to help me fall asleep, and I came up with a system. It was like maybe make OD Scutum so that it can't follow up unless it armors something. But that doesn't make sense because then you can't do the command. I don't remember what I did. I can't remember what I did. Shoot. I'll have to think about it. Let me think about that one again. But, as an example, okay, so maybe not the best example there. But for someone like Dhalsim, who I'm also worried about for wake-ups as well, I think one of the good ways to do Dhalsim, for example, is to give him an OD float. And that would seem kind of weird. But if you hit down in 3 kicks, he does an invincible float. Where he goes up into the air and he floats basically. And then, interestingly enough, he throws a fireball right away in the air. So if you do OD float, he goes up into the air invincible and just throws a fireball right away. So he goes up in the air, throws a fireball right away. So if I try to meet you and you do that and you go up into the air and throw a fireball and I block it, I can kill you. Dhalsim is still dead. It doesn't help. But then if you do give him an air EX teleport, that's basically maybe not invincible on the first frame, but invincible on like a faster frame. And then what happens is that you can cancel the OD float into an OD teleport. And then he can get across the screen. If you give him a raw OD teleport, it's too powerful. If he can get away from you like that, that's too much. That's too strong. And the reason why I think this would be an interesting middle ground is because if you wanted to do OD float into OD teleport, it would cost you 4 bars. And it would be really expensive. It would be really expensive to do it. Yeah, 4 bars to get out, basically. So I think that would be hurtful for Dhalsim, because if you really want to get out, you'll probably burn yourself out the majority of the time. And I think that would be kind of interesting. For Manon. Now this one is probably going to be kind of crazy here. But I wouldn't give her any way to escape the throw or the attack until she builds up to a level 3 medal. Now her EX throw actually is invul. Or maybe level 4. Maybe level 4, now her EX throw is invul. Which is hella scary, because that makes her offense scarier. She can poke through minus frames and do all sorts of scary things and really, really kill you. But at least you would have to work to get to that point. It might be too broken. Maybe only at level 5 can she actually get that. Because keep in mind that a lot of people were scared of the medal count, but Manons are having trouble getting the medals, and they're really, whenever they get the medals, the reward isn't enough. Because it's just too hard to get in on people. So a lot of the times they forego getting the medals to get better Oki. But now if they actually work at the medals, and now the OD grab actually turns into an invul grab that can bust through moves and be a wake up and stuff like that, I think it would be really kind of interesting. I think that would be kind of interesting. Then there would be more reason for them to go for the medals and a better reward. Work her way up from no armor to armored to invul. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Or maybe work up to being like, it'll becomes throw invul first, and then it becomes completely invul. Like at level 3, it just becomes throw invul, and then at level 5, it just becomes completely invul. I think that would be really interesting. But again, it would be fun ways to come up with different things. I think Zangief should have an EX Tundra Storm that works like Amnesia. Just doesn't work against airborne moves, so you can't use it as an anti-air. But if you throw it or attack the EX Tundra Storm, the OD Tundra Storm, he automatically counters you. And give him some sick animations. Give him an animation for kicks. Give him an animation for punches. Give him an animation for throws. And give him an animation for all the other things. What World Tour calls unique attacks. Thanks, World Tour. But like if it's a full body attack, he has a different thing. So just give him 4 different OD Tundra Storm animations, and I think that would actually be kind of sick. And then just like Amnesia, you just bait it out and you murder him. You know, if I think that would be cool. I think that would be neat for Zangief to have, and then make it so that the OD Tundra Storm does a lot less damage and gives you no Oki at all whatsoever. I think that would be something very, very important. Honda, I think it would be interesting to make it so that his butt slam is throw invul and his headbutt is still armored as it is. So he's one of the unfortunate characters that has to make the guess between one or the other. But at least that he has that option, right? At least that option exists at all. But the thing about Street Fighter V is when the game first came out, only 4 characters had non-EX invul DPs. And that seemed broken, so they took them away. But when you actually look at Street Fighter VI, the majority of the characters have OD DPs. And so the characters that don't are at such a disadvantage. So instead of taking it away from everybody, I think you really should give them to Aki. That's right, Aki needs something too. Oh gosh, I haven't really thought about how Aki works. Because if that command dash actually escapes throws as well. But I mean, you could call it out and punish it on the other side if you call it out, to be honest with you. You're never going to get hit by it. And frankly, Aki could use the love. I think Aki having just a true, completely invul command dash, I think is fair. I don't even think it would make her broken, because it's not like she's a zoner anyway. When she gets a full screen away from you, it doesn't make her more powerful. She's going to try to get back in on you anyway. So I think it actually kind of works that the EX Slither would actually work. And yeah, I mean, obviously, so Ocean from Blue says that it's hard to punish the recovery. It's so fast. Extend the recovery on it a little bit. You know, just add a little bit more recovery on it or something like that. You know, there's different ways to or just it's not add recovery, but add more vulnerable frames on it, right? So more hittable frames at the end, and I think that would work just fine, honestly, because Aki needs the help anyway. She does need help. If she switches sides with you, if I'm not mistaken, it's slide says strike invincible for the entire duration if its slide passes through the opponent, can be punished by throws. So yeah, it's still punishable by throws, but you can add some vulnerable frames. Just add some vulnerable frames to it. Just do it. Why not? So by giving it the invul at the front, put the vulnerable at the end. Basically, all I'm saying is that I just feel like every character needs some sort of OD wake up escape, because not having it is too detrimental to you for the game. And it doesn't have to be so straightforward that one move does everything where it's always just a hit. You know, JP's amnesia is really interesting. JP's amnesia, again, is weak because it doesn't work against lights and stuff like that. Like, it works against lights and it forces the opponent to block a little bit, or they even have the ability to throw you or have a mix-up on you. And the only way that JP gets the big damage combos is if he's completely in the corner. When you watched Moke versus JP, he just jabbed JP on JP's wake up the entire time, and it really nullified the amnesia pretty badly. So, and, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I like characters being different and stuff. No, not in this game. Like, I get it. I want variety. I want some characters not have ODDBs, et cetera, et cetera. But in this game, they need help. Like, it's just the as long as throw loops still exist in the game, you need to have that ability to get away from that. So speaking of throw loops, by the way, a lot of people have been complaining about throw loops and want something to be fixed for those. The OD wake up, like, as soon as you give someone OD wake up, that I think fixes throw loops, because like literally I have no reason to not try to go for throw loops on characters like Marisa and Lily and Dhalsim and Honda. You know, I just don't have any reason not to try to go. So you're just really powerful. But as long as I have that thought in my head that they're gonna OD wake up, I mean, again, like, how often have you seen like Ken's and Luke's die to throw loops, right? How often have you seen them die to throw loops? And they don't really do, because you're scared of the OD wake up. Same for amnesia, right? You're not gonna throw loop JP, and when you do, you know you're taking a risk. And so I once you add OD wake ups to every character, I don't think throw loops are a problem anymore. Honestly. Secondly, how would I fix Jamie and Ryu? Jamie, I would put him at 1 point damage, 1.0 damage right at the start, and that the drinks would buff him from there. So level 3, he'd just be level 3, he's already ridiculously strong, but like, I just don't think there's a reason to start him at weaker damage, honestly. Yeah, some people are saying make people do drive rushes to get a true throw loop. That's another one that would actually work pretty decently. Would be an interesting way to do it. But in terms of fixing Jamie, I really want him just to be at 1.0 damage from the get-go. I think that'll just help almost immediately for Jamie, because if he doesn't get a chance to build up the drinks, it's like you just start in a completely weakened fashion. Like, he needs to start in a more balanced fashion, and the drinks need to be bigger rewards, considering that they reset every single round. So I think that's kind of the right way to do that. I don't know if that would fix Jamie necessarily, but that would definitely be a good mid-season patch, because then nothing would change for Jamie, and then we can see how it works and keep buffing him as we go. And for Ryu, I want it so if you do the Denjin charge, that the next fireball actually just drains a chunk of your drive gauge. I just want Ryu's fireball to be threatening. And the reason why it's not threatening is because when he throws fireballs at you, if you parry it, you're at a zero sum. And if you perfect parry it, you can usually punish it and stuff like that. Ryu's fireball is just not scary enough. If he does Denjin Charge and he throws a fireball, and if it drains a whole block, even if you parry it or not, like it just drains a block. Now you're back to that game where you want to neutral jump the fireball more often, and I think that would actually be really kind of sick. So now Ryu can actually charge up the fireball and throw it. And now when he charges up the fireball, you're so scared of blocking a fireball that you will jump, and now he can play the fireball game. And by forcing you to have to charge up and do it, you know, you have to find that spot to charge up. I think that would be really, really interesting. Because, again, I just want the fireball to be strong again. The reason why Guile's fireball is good is because he recovers so fast. But Ryu needs to have a strong fireball again. But the only reason why his fireball has been strong in previous games is because you're scared of the chip damage. You're not scared of it. Even if I don't drive parry it, like, I'm not even scared of it, right? I block it. I don't even take chip damage at all. So if you made it so that, like, if you're just like a screen away and you're like, I'm winning in life, I'm just going to sit back here. What are you going to do, Ryu? Ryu can go Denjin Charge Fireball. Now you have to be scared of getting burned out. Or if he's charged and he knocks you down, he gets a free meaty fireball to drain a block unless you wake up and perfect parry it. Or wake up and parry... Even if you wake up and parry it, maybe you lose half a bar instead of losing a whole block or something like that. But in any case, just as a way to make it so that you're scared of the fireball, I think that would be really, really important. And would be a unique skill that only exists for Ryu, that he literally just has more burnout technique like that he has extra ways to burn you out that other characters don't. And I think that would also fit in with the whole, like, you know, very focused warrior hitting you in the, you know, chi fireballs and just being really strong. I think that would be really, really cool, that if his goal was to burn you out and then just chip you to death with fireballs and stuff like that. I think that was cool. I think that would be cool. So that's what I would do for the characters. I mean, obviously, outside of getting OD wake-ups, you know, maybe Zangief and Lily could use more love. But honestly, I would just do that, and that's it, and see where they stand. I would see where they stand if that's enough to make them better characters already, just by getting that. If you gave Lily an OD DP, if you gave Zangief an OD Thunderstorm, I would like to see how they'd function afterwards, if they would be that much stronger already. I want to see if that supports my theory that having an OD wake-up automatically makes you a better character. Because again, it's real. Like I every time I play Zangief, the way that I die with Zangief is when I get rushed down in the corner, and it's just really sad. It's just really sad because, like, Zangief's offense is so bad, and he has the worst defense, like, in the entire game. Like, why why is this the situation here, man? Come on. But let's talk about the systems, right? Someone talked about Drive Rush. People are talking about Drive Rush. Drive Rush is the biggest culprit in the game right now. First of all, I would not change any raw Drive Rush consumption, because that would throw the game just completely out of whack. Like, the game would change completely. Like, it would be a completely different game all of a sudden. I would be okay with Drive Rush cancel being 4 bars, but Jesus Christ, like, I feel like then it's almost too expensive. And I'm not even sure if people are as worried about that, because it's the canceled Drive Rushes that have more weaknesses, right? Like, a lot of characters with OD DPs can actually just blow up Drive Rush cancels, right? So we've been seeing that a lot more recently. And so I don't necessarily know if upping only the cost on the cancel Drive Rush is going to change much, because I think most people are frustrated with the raw Drive Rushes because the mental stack, right? You're worried about impacts and jumps and dashes, and then all of a sudden a Drive Rush comes at you, a raw Drive Rush comes at you from nowhere, and what? Honestly, I don't want to change the... Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, make it so it doesn't eat inputs, of course. But I don't want to change the cost, because a lot of characters need multiple Drive Rushes in a combo, multiple raw Drive Rushes to compete. Like Kimberly has some good combos that require multiple drive rushes. So if you have more than one drive rush and it takes 2 bars, for example, now you can barely do anything. Some people have suggested, well, then only in neutral, but if the enemy is in hit stun, then it only costs 1. But in neutral, at that point, so there's a video game design philosophy that you do not want to make things too complicated. It's so complicated at that point. I've told the story many times that I told my friend about the fighting game that I created, and he was like, no one will play your fighting game. I was like, what are you talking about? It's so deep and complex. Everyone's got all this crazy shit. And he was like, nobody's going to want to take the time to learn this. And now I understand what he means. If we change it so that raw drive rush is only 1 bar while the enemy is in a combo, but 2 bars while it's a new... Dude, that's so confusing. Like... We just don't want to do that, right? And so, the problem with drive rushes right now is you do not get much reward for checking a drive rush. The reward for landing a drive rush is high because if it hits you, it's so easy to confirm into a combo, and if you block it, they're plus. Like, that's it. Like, you're just like, damn it. So there definitely needs to be a little bit more. Now, one thing that we can do is make it so that drive reversals are faster. So even if someone does drive rush, like standing medium kick or crouching strong, a drive reversal would be able to actually beat that, right? So drive reversals are something we'll get into a little bit as well on how to fix that. But the problem with drive rush is the risk and the reward is not there. If I drive rush and the guy checks me with a crouching medium kick, whatever. But if I drive rush and I hit you, I get big ol' combo. If you block, I get mix up, and now you're in a scary kind of situation. The problem with it is that the risk and reward is too skewed in the favor of the raw drive rush. So the way to balance drive rush potentially is not to make it cost more or whatever, but to make it more painful when they get hit. Right? So one suggestion has always been drive rush, you are in a punish counter state, right? You are literally in a punish counter state. Now, it's hard to balance that because technically as soon as you hit a button when you're in drive rush, you're out of drive rush, right? Like you're literally out of drive rush now. Now you're just in regular, attack, startup, active recovery kind of things. But I don't think it would be too hard for them to code moves done out of drive rush because you maintain momentum. So now, obviously that's a physics engine thing more than anything else, but different moves have different physics associated with them. So I don't think it would be really hard to code the ability to make it so that a move done out of a drive rush is technically kind of like a different move and just has a punish counter state built onto them the entire time, right? So now if I'm really smart and I check it with something like a JP stand fierce or a Kimberly stand fierce or a Ken stand heavy kick, if I really want to hit that drive rush, now they do that crazy pop-up thing or the crazy reel thing and I get big damage off of that kind of situation. But even if I don't, even if I hit it with a crouching medium, you're going to get punish counter. Maybe I can actually, and maybe make it so that because they're sliding forward, when you hit them out of the move, they don't slide back as far. So like, in other words, when you normally get hit, you get pushed back a little bit, but the drive rush momentum actually cancels out the backwards momentum. So in other words, if you drive rush and I hit you, you actually stay in place. So I get a punish counter and I get to link stuff off of it a lot easier. It's almost like I'm doing a combo at point blank range. And I think that would be a little better, right? The other thing that I would do to nerf it, which is to address what Anti-Mage is talking about here, it says, I can't check DJ's drive rush anyway. I would extend the hurt box. Like, if you drive rush, like, there should just be a bigger hurt box in front of you. So I think it should just be easier to hit. It really just should be easier to hit. Maybe even make the freeze a little bit longer at the start so it's easier for people to react to it or something. But that's always the danger of making them too weak. So, and again, I don't want to change them so much that they become a completely different mechanic. So right now, I'd leave them as they are on offense. I don't want to nerf anything they can do. I want to nerf their inability to be countered. So in other words, now if you hit them, you get more damage, and if you drive rush, you have a bigger hurt box, and if you don't get pushed back when you get hit out of a drive rush, then you can combo off of that bigger hurt box a little bit easier as well. Oh, standing medium drive rush is definitely absurd, because that move also has 2 hits. Keep in mind that too. So the first hit is actually like 5 frames. And so it hits at multiple ranges and all this other stuff. So that's one of the things that makes it really, really powerful. Top Hot Gaming. I was on Top Hot Gaming. It's for really, really hot esports personalities, right? I mean, clearly, look at this specimen here, dude. Look at this Top Hot Esports Gaming. Top Hat Gaming. Man, you got me all excited, Hyperfentanyl Force. I thought you meant Top Hot Gaming. Dang it. Man. Well, I would be featured on Top Hot Gaming. Let's just put it that way, if that was actually a thing. But making it so that you could actually punish drive rushes more significantly to balance out the risk and reward. Now, if I check you out of your drive rush, out of a raw drive rush, I can potentially get bigger combos on you. And I think that would be neat. Like, for example, you know how, for example, in Third Strike, when you dash forward and you get swept, instead of falling backwards, you fall forward? Like, there's that little extra kind of thing. Maybe they just make it so that if you hit someone out of a drive rush, it's a punish counter and they stumble forward. Like, they just get a new hit animation where they stumble forward a little bit. Like, that would be kind of crazy, because then you could combo them, and then the reward for stopping the drive rush would be as high as landing the drive rush. And so now the drive rush has to be more calculated, and boom, you fix drive rushes that way without changing what they're able to do, right? You just make it so that now people are more scared to do them. I just, like, the problem is when people are trying to balance things, they're not looking at what they think drive rush is too strong. Why is they think it's too strong because I can't check it, etc., etc. No, the problem with drive rush is that the risk and reward is too in favor of the drive rush. If we just balance the risk and reward for the drive rush, it becomes now more of a I have to be careful kind of thing. I had a Luke player who literally drive rushed at me at the start of the round 100% of the time. And I would hit him out of it, but it really wouldn't amount to anything. And there was no reason for him to be discouraged, because now it actually kind of makes a good mix-up for him. But if it made it so that he drive rushed and I hit him and he stumbled forward and was punish counter length and I could do this big old combo on him, he'd be like, shoot, I really, really shouldn't do that. And yeah, they want this game to be offensive as possible, but again, smart players are still going to be aggressive with that drive rush. You're still going to be able to cancel into it, because canceling into it, you know, you're still going to hit buttons and stuff. So it's not going to be a situation where all those nerfs are going to hurt it as much. The game is still going to be plenty offensive. Like, it's not going to be as different, but at least we have to think a little bit more differently about the raw drive rush. And now we can actually just make it so people just can't throw it out mindlessly. And I don't even think Capcom would be disagreeing with that. I think that would be a great way to fix drive rush, honestly. Drive impacts. Clearly, I hate drive impacts. I really, really hate drive impacts, because I just never think of them, and they're so good at beating things. God, like when you're Aki and you do standing heavy kick into crowd crouch and then the double kick follow up, the fact that people can just drive impact and kill you. Obviously you have the command throw, but that's such a hard read that you have to make. It's really irritating. Drive impacts are, but the problem is, do they need change, right? I mean, Lurker Spite in the chat says that he doesn't even think they need change. Like, and Ocean from Blue says drive impact is the most balanced. Like, good for you guys. That shit ain't balanced for me, dude. Like, as soon as my opponent finds out I can't stop drive impacts, I get murdered. And every time I get into the corner, the amount of mental stack I have to dedicate to drive impact is basically debilitating. That people just start jumping all over me and just doing whatever they want, because I have to think about drive impact so much. Okay, so Lurker Spine says, yeah, I have to put in a lot of work to counter DIs as well. But again, okay, you're saying you think it's a you problem and not a game problem. Not necessarily. Because a lot of times you need to come up with systems that don't... It's basically like, for example, if you made a game like Marvel where you can't win at Marvel if you don't have execution, right? So they put Hulk in the game, right? Now you don't really need that much execution. Sentinel's in the game. You don't need that much execution, and you can win, right? The problem with it is that every human is different. And no, not everybody's going to get to the point where they can fight drive impacts well. That's just not a realistic thing. People have different reaction speeds. But you've put in a whole giant mechanic into a game where there's just nothing you can do except have a reaction. Like, you've literally created a mechanic that people cannot stop by practice or by getting better at. Some people just aren't going to be able to get to that position. Right. Origami King says, have one skill or you can't play that situation. And that right there is the problem, right? That's the biggest problem with it. And so, you know, the way that I've always wanted to do drive impacts a little bit differently, which I think would be a little better. Dude, it doesn't matter to parry, or I just don't hit buttons. I see the drive impact and I'm just like, oh, and I do nothing. I do literally nothing. So if you told me to drive parry, it won't make a difference. I still have to do something. I still have to react, as opposed to just seeing it and being like, and die. So one, how I would fix drive impacts is, one, give us the dang shortcut. Give us light kick plus medium punch, please. Or medium kick plus heavy punch. But I would just like light kick plus medium punch as a drive impact, as an alternate drive impact input. Please. Please give us that, because that would help us a lot. That would help us a lot. The other one that I've always thought would actually just kind of work is that it puts you in a guard break state in the corner instead. So if you're in the corner and you hit the wall, you bounce off the wall, and now you're in a guard break state in which you can't do anything but block. And so the opponent basically just gets to have free offense on you, but it drains a whole block of your drive gauge. Then when you're burnt out, then it goes back to the stun that we have already. So the burnout stun, fine. That's part of the game. Cool. But like, I feel like if they just made it so that if you block it in the corner and you hit the wall, you get stunned a little bit. And then at that point, the enemy gets free offense. Like maybe almost even enough time to get a free jump in on you or something like that. I think that would work pretty decently. I think that would actually be a little bit fair because now, you know, you block it and it sucks. But at least you're not just like dead instantaneously. At least you're not dead instantaneously. So it's just such a powerful technique. And as Automatic said, if the game started leaning more towards the manipulation of the drive gauge, I think that would be pretty sick. Heck, make it if the enemy bounces off the wall, they drain a block and you gain a block. Right? You actually gain a block. The only problem with that is now, if you throw for the drive impact, if the person counters it, it's really unfair, right? Like, again, now the risk reward is so skewed that nobody will probably ever do it because now if you get countered, you lose a chunk of life. But if you block it, you don't necessarily die. That's the main reason why I think they have it so that it's so powerful in the corner, because otherwise nobody would ever do drive impact. So I don't know, maybe if you counter drive impact, it automatically becomes scaled like a 50%, like a drive parry kind of thing. You know, like the next thing automatically becomes scaled. So if you do counter it, you don't get as much damage off of it or something like that. Or, I mean, you could just change it so that if you counter it, you just drain a block of their gauge. but at the same time, like the drive impact counter is exciting, and it's great for casual viewers, so it's nice to have there. It's a really tough one to balance. Honestly, if I wanted to balance drive impact right now, like before a big season change evaluation, give us the shortcut. Give us a shortcut. Give us the alternate input. Light kick plus medium punch. And I know some people want that for parry, but I don't think it's as bad. Parries, yeah, you kind of do need reactions, but if you miss the parry, you don't die. So some people said make that parry and then light kick plus heavy punch as the drive impact. But I'd rather just have it where my hands are floating the entire time to be able to hit light kick and medium punch. And drive parry, a lot of the times when you're drive parrying, you're doing it in anticipation as well anyway. Drive parries are a lot more setups, and you're not in a live or die situation a lot of the times with drive parry when it comes to using it in a pinch, honestly. So, yeah, see, Kraken, that's what I don't want. I don't actually want that. I would prefer having light kick medium punch as drive impact, because that's just the easiest one to access for me, and I think it would help. I'd probably still die a lot of the time, but it would certainly help, because a lot of the times the reason why I don't slide my hand over to my macro button on the side is because my brain is like, it's too far, you can't reach it in time. And so like I'll just like keep mashing jab, or just keep mashing the buttons that I'm mashing at the time, hoping that I can get the armor break, and it usually doesn't work. Honestly, so you don't want to swap any of the shortcuts, honestly, especially with throw, because throw is so muscle memory to so many games that way as throw. I think that would be a problem. But that's how I would fix drive impacts, honestly. I've talked about the throw loops already. I should have wrote down, I know I can't, what other things? Oh, modern controls, a lot of people are mad at. Dude, whatever, we still haven't proven anything for modern controls yet. However, I feel like a good way to fix modern controls is to make it, so I don't know what way to program the controller. Oh, what's up, yo, dude? I don't know how to program the controller on modern controller, because every combination is used. I put out a tweet where I suggested one, and then someone told me that that's actually the input for OD moves, and I was like, crap, so I deleted the tweet. But what I would actually do, good God, Jesus Christ, I can't even lift this controller without knocking everything over. The way that I would actually tweak it is that, for example, let's say I don't even know, so the shift button for auto combos plus special comes out as a special move. If there was some other button combination for supers, because supers right now is just is a direction plus 2 buttons at the same time. I would want like a shift mechanic where you actually have to hold something down and then tap the other button to activate super, but you have to tap it 3 times. Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to actually activate the super, or maybe even just at least twice. Maybe even just twice, because on a pad, it's hard to do 3 times and it would be annoying. But for some people, maybe at least twice. I mean, on a joystick, you could still do finger slides and stuff like that. But I mean, at least it wouldn't be just like an instant last second super kind of thing that you would still need to have some sort of anticipation, I think is really good. Direction plus 1 button is how you pick between the supers already, anti-mage. So Dreams of Morpheus, there are legitimate limits to many people's reaction times, right? As in some are worse than others. If so, reaching to DI will legit be harder for some. Yeah, I think so. Like, I think my reactions are legit bad. Everyone's like, oh, you're just not used to DIs. People used to tell me that about anti-airs too. But the thing about it is, I've been playing fighting games forever. You go back to when I was younger, I still couldn't anti-air very well. I still got jumped in on a lot, and I made up for it because in ST I played Cammy, and Cammy I could just DP after blocking a jump attack, and even if they baited it out and blocked it, Cammy would get away because she would be safe on block with her DP. With Zangief, I would block a jump attack and then just buffer in a spinning pile driver. I was bad at anti-airing my whole entire life. My reactions have never gotten better. My visual reactions are just slow. It has nothing to do with age. It literally has nothing to do with age, because you see guys like Daigo and stuff like that, their reactions are fine. It literally has nothing to do with age. And it probably has more to do with my ADHD than anything, because my psychiatrist said that I have trouble reacting to things because I have too much information in my head and I can't empty it out to focus on certain things. So whenever certain things happen, I have like 9 thoughts pass through my head before I can actually react to it. I go, oh, it's a jump. Oh, wait. So wait, is it really a jump? Okay, it is a jump. So wait, that's right. I have to do something to a jump. It's crazy. It's crazy at that point. I've been seeing a psychiatrist for like 20 years already, factory worker one. Unfortunately, my first psychiatrist moved up north, so I stopped seeing her. My second psychiatrist passed away, and now I'm seeing a third psychiatrist right now. But yeah, balancing for the diverse range of people's reactions time is a tricky challenge, which is why I think the mechanic is which is why I personally hate drive impacts. Well, I think they're just a bad mechanic, but I don't want to get rid of them. I'm trying to figure out a way to make them work even for people with bad reactions, and giving us that shortcut I think would help a lot already. I think that would be very, very useful. So, but yeah, just give us a shortcut for now. If you just give us that shortcut, light kick plus medium punch right now, it doesn't change anything about drive impacts, and it could help a lot of the people, older people on joysticks, for better reactions. And that's how I would balance drive impacts. Modern controls, like I said, make it so you have to double tap a button to activate the super, just so it's not one button. So at least you have to consciously think about it. I just have to figure out, because I don't know modern controls well enough, I don't have the ability to say, I use this button combination or whatever like that. Like, there's also a lot of like little testing things we'd have to do with it, see if you can accidentally option select it, do it, all these kind of things like that. My DI button is easily reach thumb button. I'm still too slow. Yeah, but it still requires a shift of your hand. It still requires a conscious shift of your hand instead of just blap. Instead of just buh. I actually countered a drive impact one time because I just kind of went blah. Are foot buttons legal? I don't see why they wouldn't be. I think some people have tried it. Some people have something called the handbrake on theirs, but yeah, it's just, again, the fact that people are talking about these lengths to be able to counter DIs is a problem. Is a problem. That is a significant indicator that drive impacts need to be something different. JB drive impact button is on his palm. Wait, how does that work? He has a, what? How does that work? Interesting. Oh, your thumb never leaves that button, even the way it's laid out. Oh, interesting. Okay. Huh. Yeah, so like I said, for supers in modern controls, I think the supers is the biggest problem. Having instant level 3s and having instant level 1s is the problem. And so there are lots of ways. I think one of the best ways to fix that is just to force you to actually double tap a button. Now, I have heard that double tapping a button, and you know, from when they remove the double tapping special moves, that double tapping buttons are actually really annoying for some people to do, even just a simple double tap. But I think it's fair, and especially if you make the window for it extremely long, and make it so you don't have to double tap it if you're canceling into it, which does add some complexity. Maybe you do have to just make it so you have to double tap it, but if you just make the window really large so that you can double tap it, you know, at least within 60 frames, it works. I think that would actually work right now. So. But then it just wouldn't be something that you could do instantly. You couldn't just do it instantly. So Wolverine's Force Drill Claw was the buttons on top of each other. Heavy punch, heavy kick, medium punch, medium kick, light punch, light kick. Then it got changed to the diagonals in a later game where it had to be medium kick plus heavy punch. So, oh, no. They changed it to light kick plus medium punch, I believe it was. Yeah, that's what it was. It was light kick plus medium punch. So, because they added assists. Yep, of course, of course. What else are people complaining about in Street Fighter 6 right now in terms of balance? What else are people really mad? God, Nathan. Oh, goodness gracious. Nathan, what are you doing? Nathan's tail is a monster, dude. Whenever he lies down on my table like this, oh, perfect parry. Thank you, Mifa. That's the one that I personally hate the most. I personally hate the most. When you saw me do the Idom versus Shine match, I definitely went into it a lot. A lot of top players are saying that it's random. I just don't think it's worth trying to I don't think it enhances the game for people to play around the concept that drive parries exist. I don't like the fact that, you know, you have to think about, oh, I'm just doing this thing. And this one time, if they just happen to drive parry and succeed, that they get to kill me and kick my ass. You know, and I really don't think they expected people to get as good at drive parries as people are becoming. And I think that's kind of a concern right now. And, you know, they did the 50% damage nerf, but that doesn't matter. The nerf literally has... God, Nathan, stop it. Okay, look, Nathan, you are making this very, very difficult for me to do this. Please. Please. Oh, God. So, yeah, and then there's no downside to trying a perfect parry. You can just perfect parry, and if you're wrong, oh no. Especially since you block and you actually gain drive gauge that way. Oh, dude, it's never gone anywhere, Hot Rod Crusher. It's been here this whole time. It's just been me, though. It's only me. So, again, the idea isn't the damage from the perfect parry. The idea really is the advantages that you get out of it, that you can actually... you know, back throw people, or, you know, do a corner carry combo, or, you know, set up some sort of resources and stuff like that. So I think, like I said, the way that I would fix it, honestly, is that if anybody ever perfect parries anything, it just turns into a full screen unblockable hitbox, and like it turns it into a capture state, and you just like push them or punch them, and it just pushes them away at 0 or maybe even -1 just to give you some reward for it. And it just does like 1,000 damage, like as much damage as a throw maybe, or maybe even less than that. But I mean, if you take away everything from it, then it's going to be super weak. But, you know, just basically like, and you catch them and push them, and you push them away, and you're back to neutral. I think that would be fair. I think that would be fair because, you know, a lot of characters, they get to set stuff up off of perfect parries. They get Oki, they get corner carry, they get side switch, all these things. And maybe even just make it so that once the perfect parry occurs, you hold left and right. And then when you capture them, you can decide which way you throw them. You know, something like that. That's too drastic of a change for right now. That might be a season 2 thing. So maybe for now, I mean, right now, I don't think you can really change anything to perfect parry except maybe drop the scaling even more, right? Just lower the scaling even more. But like I said, it's not even the damage that matters. So I don't think I don't think anybody would care. But, you know, for season 2, I think something like that for the perfect parry would work, honestly. I don't see them changing the mechanic that much. Yeah, same here, Aunt Viv. Same here. Oh, season 1, Aunt Viv. Let me make that clear, okay? Because that's obviously different. So, and I mean that sincerely. That wasn't sarcastic at all. There's clearly a difference. But I just I feel like there's no way to punish drive parries enough except for throwing them. And again, like in that Shine and Idom match, like Shine wasn't trying to perfect parry all that much, and then in the 5th game he perfect parried once, and then won the entire game off of that, right? He won the entire round off of that. And it's just like I asked, did Idom really do anything wrong? Do you really want to turn Street Fighter 6, where it's hard enough to jump in on somebody, into a game where all of a sudden now, if you do manage to sneak a jump on somebody, they might perfect parry it and then basically get to kill you or knock you down? So one of the hardest things in the game to do is get a jump on somebody, and now at the last second, they can still perfect parry you and punish you for landing your jump attack. Like, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks, you know? And were you wrong for going for the jump attack? Should you have accounted for that and done empty jump into throw? I mean, yeah, you can say that, but it's just like, is that how we want to play this? Is that how we want this game to be played? That's really what it comes down to, and I don't think that's how the game should be played. I really don't think. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of empty jump into throw out there because of the perfect parry anti-air, and I think it's kind of silly, to be honest with you. I think it's kind of silly. The hardest thing is, I mean, that is a question right there. Is except the jumper has nothing. They can't parry in the air, so it's not really a third strike problem, because at least the jumper could parry. At least they had the same defense and offense. They could jump and parry, but you can't do that in this game. Yeah, if you take away perfect parries, it does make Honda and Blanca stronger. Although maybe not, because some characters, well, would it be a problem in this situation? Because learning to perfect parry the headbutt and the Blanca, I hate the fact that that's actually something you have to learn against Honda and Blanca to fight them at higher levels. I think that's really bad. You may have to nerf those moves slightly, but I don't know. Like, it's tough. It's tough because you have to do it on them. But honestly, if you got the perfect parry and you got 1,000 damage off of it and put them back to neutral, it might not be the worst thing, honestly. It might not be the worst thing. But yeah, obviously the thing is, if you always make the headbutt do small damage, then the risk and reward is really awful. There's just no reason to ever do the headbutt at this point. So, I mean, Honda headbutt is stupid, but it's not, right? Because as we've seen from tiers and tournament placements, Hondas aren't winning by headbutting people to death. They're just not. And a lot of it is the perfect parry, and a lot of it is there's just ways to blow up headbutts if you predict it and such. Yeah, I hate the fact that perfect parry is kind of required to fight Honda and Blanca. I really dislike that. But, like, I can't have any success against those characters unless I learn to perfect parry those moves as well. And it's frustrating to me. So, but I right now, before Capcom Cup, we can't do anything to drive parries. But starting from Season 2, if I had to nerf them, I would do the capture state thing back to neutral, honestly. That's a mechanic that they haven't used. I've suggested forever, and I feel like it's something that they need to consider. Same thing with a guard crush state. I think guard crush states are really important as well. Very useful for balancing purposes. Another thing people don't like, drive reversals. They're too weak. You can't make them require less meter. Otherwise, the game will become super boring. Everybody will be drive reversaling everything all day. It has to be 2 bars. Has to be 2 bars. If you make it 1 bar, Lily becomes unplayable. She literally just becomes unplayable. She doesn't even work as a character anymore. The only thing that I would do is speed them up a little bit. Just make them a little bit faster. But, I mean, they can be annoying, too. Like, I get hit by Dhalsim drive reversals all the time, and it's super annoying. Fighting against Dhalsim drive reversal, man. I mean, if you make it so it's not punishable, like, that's not good. Maybe make it -2. Or maybe make it -4. So that, well, see, the problem is if you make it -4, it's still really hard to punish because you get pushed away a lot of times. You're not close enough to actually hit them. drive reversals are hard to balance. And the fact that they're a little too weak right now is probably safer than anything, honestly. Right now, I probably wouldn't do anything to them because they can be useful, but they're not like overpowered and they're not super annoying. This isn't we need to nerf this thing. This is a we need to buff this thing. And I think we would have to think about it a little bit more, because the thing about it is changing drive reversals would be necessary in this vacuum. But with every other change that I've talked about, if we nerf drive rushes, if we give everybody ODDP, some sort of ODDP, etc., drive reversal might be exactly where it needs to be. It might not actually even be a problem anymore, and would just be useful as it is, because we've increased the defensive options for a lot of characters. So we don't need a stronger drive reversal. So we might not even need to tweak drive reversal at all. So I think that would work. So JP, Dhalsim, and Manon, because they don't have a lot of other options, but other players, once they get smarter, it's like drive reversals in Street Fighter V. They're super useful for the players who knew how and when to use them. Like if you were fighting against Mika, you use it on drop kicks and stuff like that, or use it on EX Zonk Knuckles from Cody and things like that. You know, there were really smart places to use them. And as the game gets more mature, there will be a lot more common places that will use them in matches that make more sense for a recoverable resource like that. So I already talked about what I would do for Dhalsim, and no, OD Amnesia would not be it. Not be it at all. But yeah, I guess those are kind of like the main ways that I would fix it. But really, it comes down to is I don't know if the game really needs that much of a fix. Like, honestly, everything I've talked about, I don't know if I would do everything that I suggested. I would play around with them all to see how they would work together with each other. But for sure, you know, I want to see some characters get buffed. For sure, I want to see Ryu, Jamie, you know, Lily, Zangief get buffed a little bit. And again, just a tiny bit. And even right now, like, I wouldn't even necessarily nerf Luke, JP, or Ken. Like, if I buff those guys, would I want to nerf those three? I mean, maybe I would lower the damage of Luke a little bit. The only thing I really want to nerf from Ken is a standing heavy punch. I think a standing heavy punch is still a crime against humanity. And JP, maybe if you get hit by an amnesia bomb, it automatically does the 50% scaling. Like, maybe that's all that would need to happen for those characters right now. And that's about it. And I think that would be fine, to be honest with you. I would nerf Ken just to try to remove the population of ranked. I'm tired of fighting Kens. Yeah. Yeah. Dragon Lash, I mean, has significant weaknesses. The only thing that I would nerf with Dragon Lash is to give it more of a visual startup. The most powerful thing about Dragon Lash right now, again, a lot of people don't realize this because they just block it and they're like, this move is broken. The move has a lot of ways to stop. Dragon Lash can be beat up really badly. The problem is you can't tell when Ken does it because the startup of Dragon Lash is, and it doesn't look any different than his standing animation. Like, he's just like if it did like a puff of flames near his feet, like when he started, like on only the heavy one to give you something to react to, it might actually become useless. Like, literally, if you gave Ken a puff of flames at his feet when he starts it up, that's enough that might almost make Dragon Lash useless. For those people who have good reactions, they will drive impact it 100% of the time. They just see flames and drive impact. And this is the scariest part about balancing. A lot of people don't realize what the actual problem of a move is or how much of something can affect it. Maybe you make the puff of smoke come out a few frames later, so you don't give them like a clear, timing to it. You can jab Dragon Lash, you can perfect parry Dragon Lash. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do to it. Doesn't he only say, how's this once he starts kicking? Like, for me, by that, it's too late. I'm just blocking it at that point. But if I could actually see him when he starts it, then I'd be able to drive impact it. But yeah, I mean, again, the Dragon Lash move isn't necessarily broken because it's not necessarily broken because of the post situation. In my opinion, it's broken because of the pre situation. It's the same reason why Nash's dash was so strong in season 1 of Street Fighter V, because the first few frames of his dash didn't look like anything. The first few frames of his dash were basically invisible, so you had no animation frames to react to, which is why Nash's dash was so strong in season 1. It actually had nothing to do with the fact that dashes were broken or that, you know, Nash's dash is faster, just too good. It's just that you couldn't see it coming, so you couldn't react to it the same timing you could react to other ones. Dragon Lash is really in that same situation because there are so many ways to blow up Dragon Lash. The hardest part is that we just never see it coming. And that's really, really kind of... Oh, yeah, well, there was 8 frames input lag as well, which was also another problem. But, you know, even still, the fact that Nash's dash didn't have any animations was a problem. Yeah, I wouldn't even nerf those 3 characters that much. I really wouldn't. Because, again, like, if we buff everybody else, the ecosystem will change a lot. If we buff everybody else, and while Ken, Luke, and JP are clearly top 3 and are stronger than other characters, I don't know if they're significantly stronger enough. I don't know if they're Cronin from KOF 15 before the big recent patch, for example. Like, Cronin was so good enough that literally everybody had him on his team, and if you didn't have him on your team, you were wrong. And that, you know, if you didn't nerf him, he'd still be too strong. I don't know if Ken, Luke, and JP are in that situation. I honestly don't. I honestly don't believe they're broken. I just think that the other characters don't have enough to keep up with them. Why does Ken and Luke have a scarier corner pressure situation than Kimberly, but they get to maintain their ODDPs, right? Like, they're way scarier in the corner because Kim has to have the perfect setups for spray cans, and she has no range. Ken just walks back and hits Fierce Punch, and he's like, "Oh, I punish countered you." oh, shoot, let me low forward, and then it combos. Like, it's kind of dumb. Ocean from Blue saying that probably JP's normals need a little looking at. Yeah, maybe create a little bit more of a less disjointed hitboxes on the cane or something like that. Perhaps, but again, is that really the problem with JP? Is that really where his strengths lie? You know, is that where the problems come from when it comes to JP? Maybe slowing down crouching heavy punch would actually be a little bit a better thing to do, right? Make it so that the startup on crouching heavy punch is a little slower, so it's harder to anti-air or something. But again, you know, if we make it so OD Amnesia maybe doesn't do as much damage, maybe we don't need to nerf him anymore. Maybe with that and everybody else getting buffed, we don't need to nerf JP anymore. We don't know. And I don't, like I said, while a lot of people think JP is number 1, I don't think he's better enough for us to justify going hard nerfing on any of these 3 characters yet. Everybody else can win. We just need to make it so that everybody else can win closer to as easily as those 3 characters. And it's not that far ahead because as you look at everybody's tier lists, most people will tier the worst characters in the game at A+, A, or B+. Like, there are no C tier characters in this game, and I truly believe that's true. Honestly, if you rate anyone lower than a B, I think you're wrong. Like, I can justify putting like Lily, Manon, Zangief as B, but that's as bad as it gets. And no, tier list should not be a relative scale. No, the worst character doesn't mean that they're F tier. That is not how tier lists work. Don't ever make tier lists that way. So I don't think anyone could ever justifiably get lower than B. So if you buff some of those characters and it just shoots them, even if it doesn't shoot them all the way, even if it shoots them to A-, and Luke and Ken and JP stay at S+ or S, I think that's fine. Honestly, like I think that that would be great because it's so hard to balance a fighting game so that everybody is like A plus all over across the board, right? So if we just make it so that these other characters just can win a little bit better and then win a little bit better and then win a little bit better, I think we'll get there eventually. Honestly, I think that's all we really need to do. So. Historically, have my hopes for Street Fighter balance patches been mirrored by the actual patches that are released? No, never. My ideas for patches are almost never put into play because I think in weird ways, and there are so many avenues to do it. And also, my ideas for patching would probably change a lot if I actually had the ability to test them out. If I actually had the ability to test them, then I'm sure my opinion would change drastically. It's just I'm doing what I best can on paper. On paper, it sounds like all this stuff is great, but probably it's not as great as I thought it would be. So that's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, Japan actually has Lily a little bit higher. I mean, right now, a lot of people are saying Manon's the worst character, and it's actually starting to get to a point where it's hard to debate that, honestly. It's getting hard to debate that at this point. Let's hope the devs are busy at work testing all sorts of balancing ideas so they can find the best ones. I mean, look, at least we know the battle planners are Matsumoto-san and Nakayama-san. And when they basically got in charge of Street Fighter V, Street Fighter V balance patches became so much more knowledgeable and aware. And Street Fighter V ended up in a great place. So honestly speaking, as long as they are in charge, I have a lot of faith in it. I mean, the fact that the game came out as balanced as it is a miracle unto itself. So I have a lot of faith in what they're doing. I really do. And which is why even if a patch comes out and doesn't implement a lot of my changes, I think that would be fine. But honestly, I think my favorite change idea right now is that if you hit drive rush, it's a punish counter and they stumble forward. Their hit stun is forward moving due to momentum. So that way, if I check it with a medium punch, I get a punish counter combo even at max tip range of button. So in other words, if someone comes at me and they drive rush at me and I hit them, they stumble forward and I can damage them. The hard part for that is that might actually nerf a lot of characters like Zangief. He kind of needs drive rushes a lot. And so if you nerf it that way, Zangief might become worse. We don't know. That would make Dhalsim a god. There's another problem right there. It clearly could make Dhalsim too strong. So we'd have to worry about that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider and think about and look at in those kind of situations. But basically, for drive rushes, we just have to balance the risk and reward for them. And actually, to be fair, maybe if we did that, if Sim gets benefits from that, we just don't give him an OD wake up. Maybe Dhalsim just is a character who's, you know what, too bad. You don't get it because your zoning is so strong. And so you just still have to stay in this land of hold that on mix-ups. Maybe you don't have to give everyone one. Maybe Dhalsim is the exception. He was the exception in Super Turbo. In Super Turbo, the only characters that didn't have a wake up were Dhalsim and Bison. That was it. And maybe that's just the exception at that point. So yeah, sim players have been doing that their whole life, so it's whatever. So yeah, the Marisa idea that I had gets a little messed up. I'd have to think about a proper way to make Marisa work, to make her fair, to be honest with you. Yeah, so maybe Odie Scootum isn't the right move to actually have her be able to tech throws automatically because she can do a follow-up. And so if you know she's going to wake up with an Odie Scootum, how do you punish her, right? Do you just make it so that Odie stance into all the moves are super minus on block? I mean, one is -3, The other one is minus 21. The sweep is minus 24. So those two you can blow up really badly. So you might just have to make it so that OD stance into the overhead does both attacks automatically. And then OD stance into command grab. I mean, it's obviously really punishable if you call that out as well. I don't know. Well, I'd have to think about Marisa. Oh, no, you can throw OD Scutum. So, K-John, I'm just talking about my initial idea to fix Marisa was make it so that OD Scutum would tech throws automatically. So she can't get out of corners. And maybe she's like -2 after she techs the throw. So she'll trap there. But at least she has some option to escape throw loop or attack mix up if she doesn't want to have to guess between the two. Because like I said, I feel like every character should have one because this game is brutal, except now maybe Dhalsim. Just don't give him one, because if we made that change to Drive Rush, it would be too good for Dhalsim. And so basically just make it so that Dhalsim just has no way to escape. Because you know what? Too bad, Dhalsim. Too bad. But I think that's all I've got for today. I think that's all I have. I've been streaming for 3 hours talking about this already. So, yeah, those are my ideas. If you can poke any holes into the ideas that I have for balancing, or if you have some of your own ideas that are literally reasonable, please don't make unreasonable ones, like give T-Hawk a gun, okay? Like, I get it. Or make Cammy's dive kick an overhead like the Street Fighter 4 one. Well, the suggestion that I had given Season 1 Ant Viv is I wanted to give him an OD float that was invincible but automatically throws a fireball. So in other words, like you could actually just attack OD float into fireball in one motion from across the screen as an interesting thing. But as soon as he starts throwing the fireball, it becomes vulnerable. And if you're right next to him and you block that fireball, you can murder him. So then you also give him an OD teleport, which is just a little bit faster than the regular teleport. But the main thing about it is you can cancel OD float into OD teleport. So then it costs you 4 bars to escape across the screen. And then if he wants to do it, he has to really risk himself putting himself into burnout, is kind of how I wanted to do it. So I think that would be really, really fair. If he really wants to escape, he's basically got to burn himself out to do that. Because the teleport right now, his startup is 4 frames. Can't really make it faster than that. Maybe OD teleport. I don't know. Maybe only OD teleport works in the air. Or maybe just if you chain it into a teleport, it just drains 2 extra bars. And that's just how it works. That's just how it works. There's no such thing as an OD teleport. But if you can do an OD teleport off of OD float, so it costs 2 bars for you to get away. I think that was my idea for Dhalsim. So, could you hear the chirp? Meow. There you go. Meow. 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 You can't get this on any other podcast, ladies and gentlemen, only here on It Was Tuesday. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, the day that this podcast graced your ears was the most important day of your life. But for me,
it was Tuesday.